back then it was the DHSS, and they shortened it to the DSS, and then they shortened it just to the SS. No,
You always had
that's Thatcher for you, right, kids?
Hey, folks out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Audiophile. It's Andy, it's John, and it's time for some music. John, you're going to be offering me something to listen and react to today, and we are going to discuss it thereafter. Let's get this show on the road. What have you got in store?
Have you heard of a band called UB40?
Yes, I have, and I am familiar with at least, just off the top of my head, two of their tracks. Like I Can't Help Falling in Love with You, or however that goes, and Red Red Wine. Is that also them? Yeah. Outside of that, I don't think I know anything else. And if I do, it would come as a surprise to me, or at least unbeknownst to me.
Okay, well, you will get my take and thoughts on their other output, but I have a song for you, which they did. This is called Food for Thought, and this is audio only, as they always are. Peel session version of this.
Oh, what an interesting group to have for Peel. Again, totally based off my own prejudice and lack of knowledge and presupposition, but I would not have guessed or put the bet the farm on UB40 being on a Peel session. But hey,
yeah.
Maybe that's indicative of what I'm about to get into, and that, you know, it'll be a aha, oh my gosh moment or something. But yeah, let me go check. You said Food for Thought. Okay. Let me go off, give that a listen, and I will come back and let you know what I made of it. Good. That fucking saxophone, boy. Whew. Digging that. Sounds beautiful. Sounds sad, but rich. It's lovely over top of this awesome reggae sound that they've got going on as well. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this already. Right, those sound like some pretty metaphorical lyrics. Something about Ivory Madonna dying in the dust. And he says something about waiting for manna from the west. Interesting stuff. Something about death being certain, and like something about scattered from the skies or something. I don't know. It sounds like destruction or war or something. I don't know. Not pleasant is what it sounds like. Yeah, I'm intrigued already by the narrative that I'm only catching bits and pieces of, but let's see if I have any more success moving forward. Again, all over top of this really beautiful music. And if it is about any of what I just suggested, like war or famine or whatever, this saxophone does such a great job of illustrating sort of this woeful type sound and capturing the mood. is good too.
Politicians again, sharpening their knives, drawing up their bargains, trading baby lives. Ivory Madonna, dying in the dust, waiting for the manna coming from the west. The bells are ringing, Christmas on its way. Hear the angels singing. What is that they say? Eat and drink, rejoicing. Joy is here to stay. Jesus, Son of Mary, born again today.
This is so pretty. Like, I know it's sad, but like the mood is sad, and from what the lyrics I can catch are pretty sad too. But the way the guitar kind of like punctuates the end of like a kind of like a bluesy mechanism when you think about it. Like you have a line, and then a blues guitar kind of punctuates the line, and then you have the next vocal line, and then some more of that kind of blues guitar. There's a little bit of that in here as well, which is interesting to hear, and what just on face value sounds like a reggae song. This last verse, a bit of a fork in the road here as far as like the lyrics we were getting, and now we've gone down this other path where he's talking about like imagery of Christmas, like bells tolling and joy and food and drink and Jesus. There's a direct reference to Christmas and Jesus, Son of Mary, in those lyrics as well, which is a lot different than the sort of, dare I say, war-torn kind of lyrics that were in the earlier verse. I can only think that it's like like they flipped the script or the perspective, and you have the civilians of the country being retaliated against, going through the hardships of being in that situation, to the perspective, or it's kind of like this vantage point or the setting and scene of the civilians of the Western country, who are perpetrating the retaliation. And who's to say it's retaliatory? That's, but regardless, it's like the creature comforts that they have, plenty of food, drink, revelry, all ironically in this case celebrating a deity, a god, or the son of God, who was against war and famine, and destitution, all that stuff. So the irony therein, it's a little pointed. If that's what they're going for, I don't even know. But it sounds like you had this vantage point in the one of the of people in a far worse scenario, that is being perpetrated by a country who these people who are celebrating Christmas represent, and sort of perhaps the lost moral compass, or just perspective, that if they were true believers in any faith really, they would take issue with. I don't know. That's my guess. jammed out for another 2 minutes on that. Yeah, I could have listened to that. I mean, that's what's great about reggae, right? You can be repetitious, but you just fall into it. I could have listened to that bit for another couple minutes for sure. Ivory Madonna dying in the dust, waiting for the manna coming from the west, or something to that effect. It's an interesting line, and it obviously it carries, I would assume, the most weight of the lyrics because it's the portion that's repeated the most. I don't know who this Ivory Madonna is. Honestly, I'm torn between two things. You think Ivory Madonna, and you think like porcelain skin. You think Caucasian. It's not oftentimes that that we are the people waiting for manna from the west. We usually represent whatever that western force is. So it's hard for me to, just historically looking at it, hard for me to wrap my head around what that could mean. But then Ivory, the second thing I think of is like the Ivory Coast. So I don't know if that is what they're alluding to. Perhaps that's the case. I don't know. I bet John might, and he might have some answers. And we can talk about how fucking beautiful the music was in this song and how great that groove was. The guitar and sax shined in this. The lyrics were just metaphorical enough that they weren't ham-handed, and gave you room to think and interpret. Now, I don't know. Now, obviously, when you think and you interpret, that opens the possibility for misinterpretation or for not fully grasping it. But I like that it requires the effort, that it isn't just so black and white. So I wonder how much of this I interpreted correctly, and I'm sure John can help clear that up for me, and I look forward to discussing this group. I've heard like one or two tracks from, and they're the obvious ones. So it was a really nice opportunity to listen to something else by them, and to know that there is more to them than perhaps was my presupposition before getting an opportunity to check out more by them. So yeah, let's get back to John, learn more about these guys, for sure dig into the lyrical content and the meaning of the song, because I've got questions and I'm hoping that he's got answers.
Officer Frank Poncherello, he's back. So you've had to listen to Food for Thought by, as locals around, I will say, UB40. What do you think?
Interesting song, and not at all like the more saccharine, cheesy stuff I would have associated with
How
this
dare
band.
you?
I know, wholly unfair. But that
Totally
opinion is a product of what the radio told me they were like. You know what I mean? When they only feed you two songs, that's what you walk away with. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Also, I'll get into this a little bit more, like my feelings about the song a little bit more, but really interesting to hear them really lean into the reggae sound, as opposed to sounding like a band that incorporates aspects of reggae into their sound. This was more the true package, or much closer to it than the works that I've heard from them in the past. So I've really enjoyed that. There were also aspects of another genre of music that was kind of evident in this a little bit, that I thought was kind of interesting, and I'll get on that in just a little bit here. But things start with a few raps of the hi-hats, and then the rest of the band joins, and we are firmly in the midst of a reggae jam, complemented and carried by the dulcet tones of some sweet sax work. Saxophone in this track, obviously a standout star, sounded fabulous. Some interesting.
I'm a big fan of all sax workers.
Yeah, me too. They deserve their dignity, damn it, and a good healthcare coverage. Yeah, so there were some interesting and seemingly metaphorical lyrics that joined the song, and from what I gather, he sings some of this, and some verses and bits stood out to me more than others from a clarity standpoint. So Ivory Madonna dying in the dust. Interesting line. Waiting for the manna coming from the west. Barren is her bosom, empty as her arms or eyes. I don't really know what he says there, but death death a certain something scattered from the skies. And while I can't catch all of it, which is pretty obvious there from my, my recalling what I heard, it definitely sounds like it's about some like Western war machine taking out an already vulnerable people. And while I don't know which of the seemingly endless list of war campaigns this is alluding to, it seems like a common narrative that can be applied to any war, proxy or direct, that has been waged over the last 100 years or so. So, as the song progresses, my appreciation for the tightness and cohesion of the rhythm section really grows, as it will often do when you're listening to reggae music. But it was so cohesive that it sounded like it was its own like it was its own monolithic thing, not these disparate parts coming together to create it, which is really impressive. So yeah, it creates this canvas over which this wistful sax can paint its melancholic but beautiful notes. And that was just awesome. The singer then repeats the first two lines from that first verse, underscoring the importance of those words, I'm assuming, their meaning and the picture that they paint. The next verse starts, and each line is highlighted or underscored by these, and this is where this other genre comes in. This classic thing that happens in blues music where there's a line and then a guitar lick and then a line and then a lead guitar. You have that here as well, where you get a line of the lyrics and some guitar work that comes, and fills in the gap. So I thought that was really cool and kind of bluesy in nature. And I really liked the runs that the electric guitar was doing. And there were sort of like the guitar and the sax are like passing the baton back and forth as well. And I thought that was interesting, and it provided this poignant bit of musical punctuation. But in the verse, the lyrics appear to touch in like this upcoming verse. The verses or the lyrics appear to touch on the arrival of Christmas, with references of bells ringing, Christmas being on its way, angels rejoicing, something about food and joy being shared, and then a direct reference to Jesus, son of Mary. And I'm not sure why, but the sudden shift in lyrical content from like war to Christmas is like quite the divergence, right? Like you're talking about one thing, and then you're talking about like celebrating Christmas. But if I had to guess, what this is like a bit of like an altered, like the other perspective, or a perspective of another party involved in the bigger picture. So it's kind of like flipping the script. And the first portion, they're talking like the first verse, they're talking about the country who is being retaliated against and its civilians who are enduring what comes with that. And this portion seems to be illustrating what the civilians of the country who is perpetrating the retaliation are experiencing, which is bountiful food, joy, celebration. And I think maybe like they chose Christmas as a means to convey that because it is a religious holiday centered around an entity who loathed war, hunger, and destitution. So this underscores the hypocrisy of it all. Here is this group of the forgotten and the downtrodden, and here's this group who majority of its country says in God we trust and espouses all of these like Judeo-Christian beliefs about humanitarianism, and yet they allow the stuff that we'd heard in the first verse to take place. So that's my guess anyway. This is followed by more of that sax, and then we get a chorus that repeats and combines runs on both the sax and the lead guitar. And at the 404 mark, or close to it, we get this interesting like laser-like sound from the guitar that continues to repeat until it becomes more rapid and then ends. And this is followed by some lovely low. Also, it's coupled with, but then followed by some really awesome drum rolls as the song continues to jam its way to an end with a little sax flourish at the very end to land the dismount. And honestly, that portion they could have doubled it in time or made it another minute of just jamming out on that, and I would have.
Yeah.
It would have been a nice way to decompress from the heaviness of my interpretation, at least of the lyrics. I don't know if that's the true meaning, but that's what it was. It would have been nice to just kind of like let the thoughts have music to listen to as the thoughts kind of unfurled in your head. So yeah, this is a timely song, as unfortunate as that is to say, because these kind of conflicts and the emotions that go with them seem to be some sort of eternal doom loop that never stops. And I can't help but think that Christmas is quickly approaching, and we have ongoing wars in the Middle East and Ukraine, both with no real end in sight, and thousands who have already died as a result. So it's hard for me to say the word enjoy when talking about anything right now, because it's kind of like, as an American, my tail is a bit between my legs on this. But I liked this song a lot. I just can't shake the ick that it gives me because of how close to the bone it truly cuts. Regardless, though, like, I'm glad you shared it with me, and I'm glad that I got to hear it. I really appreciated the content, even if it did give me the heebie-jeebies and the dirty feels. And it also kind of gave me a glimpse into a band who the very little of their content that I was familiar with seemed, like schmoozy love shit and not very, deep. It was kind of like vapid, shallow, let's just sing about love stuff and not tackle any major issues or whatever. And this did all of those things, which comes as quite as a surprise to me. So yeah, I enjoyed this one, John.
Yeah.
You sharing it.
Yeah, I mean, I actually was considering this as one of my Christmas tunes to you,
Mm,
for reasons I'll get into later, but you obviously picked on quite a bit of that, which is very cool. Yeah, UB40, I'm not a big fan, not at all.
yeah.
But I will say this, when they started, they were of real British reggae essence, superb in terms of that moving forward. There's a little bit of tonality to them which that I don't quite doesn't quite please me. I don't know if it's perhaps his very nasally vocals. It could be that. I don't know. But they did a couple of tunes. I mean, this came out when I was a kid, and there's another one at the album afterwards, 1 in 10, which is another cracking song, to be fair. And then by the time you get to the banality of Red Red Wine, it's arguable, but definitely I Got You, Babe, which is a cover of Sonny and Cher, done
Yeah.
with Chrissy Hynde. I mean, that's just vapid stuff. And they're firmly into pop, really, at that point.
Yeah, I was just about to ask
with
you
a reggae shawl over its shoulders, but it's still pop.
yeah, and I was just about to ask you if, like, what the timeline was, comparatively speaking, to those tracks that I alluded to earlier. And it comes as zero surprise that the early stuff tackled the heavier material, and then they realized, oh shit, we got to sell some albums and make some money here.
Yeah,
And
let's
it's a
make
lot
some
easier
living,
to
yeah.
sell albums talking about red wine and your enduring love for someone than it is to tackle this kind of stuff.
I even prefer Rat in the Kitchen to those two, and that's saying something. But anyway, so UB40 are a reggae and pop band formed in 1978 in Birmingham, England.
Birmingham.
Yes, Birmingham. The the ethnic makeup of the band's original lineup was diverse, with musicians from English, Welsh, Irish, Jamaican, Scottish, and Yemeni parentage. And they all walk into a bar, and they're like, no, anyway. So the personnel for the first album: Astro, talk over vocal and percussion; Jim Brown, drums; Ali Campbell, lead vocals, rhythm guitar; Robin Campbell, lead guitar, vocals; Earl Falconer, bass; Norman Lamont to sound. I always wish we laugh at, British.
There's been
so,
already a few of these names that made me chuckle. I mean, Jim Brown is maybe one of the greatest running backs of all time. So I'm instantly thinking of a Cleveland Brown in the band. A guy named Ashbro? Like what?
Yeah. And Norman Lamont used to be a chancellor when they had their hit on the. Anyway, Norman Lamont, Hassan, percussions, congas, Brian Travers, tenor saxophone, melodica, and Michael Virtue, keyboards, strings, organs. So the band name UB40 refers to an attendance card issued to people back then claiming unemployment benefits from the UK government Department of Employment. Designation UB40 stood for Unemployment Benefit Form 40. So basically it was your dog card, which had to show you attended. Back then it was the DHSS, and they shortened it to the DSS, and then they shortened it just to the SS. No.
You always had
That's Thatcher for you, right, kids? Anyway, the inspiration for this track, Food for Thought, was said to have come from the genocide in Cambodia, then known as Kampuchea, by the Khmer Rouge, which obviously oversaw the massive killing of sort of between 1.5 and 3 million people. They still can't work out how many died between 75 and 79. The song's lyrics were written by Robin Campbell and relate to the hypocrisy of Christmas. The fact there are starving people in Africa, and here we all are sitting around eating our Christmas dinner and praising the Lord. After having written the lyrics, Campbell brought them to the rest of the band, who then worked together on the music. The song was originally called The Christmas Song, before one of the roadies suggested Food for Thought would be a better title. Remember, this is still 5 years before Band Aid and Do They Know It's Christmas and all that. So it's amazing how, precedent it was then.
Question, like you mentioned mentioned Cambodia directly, and then you went on to say about the starvation in Africa. Where's the correlation between the atrocities?
There was it's not, you see, obviously 84 was the crisis in Ethiopia. But
Yes.
there was famine in northern Africa before then, which didn't hit the headlines, and so he's referring to two things.
Okay.
Which I'll get into in the lyrics.
Okay, yeah, and one of the well, I feel like I should let you go, but I brought this up in the reaction. I didn't mention it until now, and I feel like I should because we're about to get in the lyrics. But the Ivory Madonna was perhaps the most interesting lyric in the whole thing. At least from trying to wrap my head around. Because I think the first thing I think of Ivory Madonna, I think of a white woman, and then I'm thinking, hey, they're not affected by the shit we're talking about. In fact, white folk are often the one perpetrating it. So then I thought Ivory Coast, and now you're talking about Africa. So I'm just, you've got my brain all over the place thinking about what it could mean.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. If you could bring clarity there.
Okay, I'm not actually going to go into that bit, but I will say this. I mean, just ivory and the trade of ivory in Africa, exploitation. It's elephants, but it's the same bloody thing for a Christian sort of, but anyway. Prior to recording the song, the band debated the lyrics, with Campbell since regretting the ambiguity of them, saying, I find it incredible that some people can't understand it, and that upsets me. I think the symbolism is quite obvious. This is perhaps aggravated by the fact that the opening lyric, Ivory Madonna, has often been misheard as I'm a prima donna or I believe in Donna. Now, I have to say, hearing this on the radio as a kid, I knew this as I'm a prima donna song. And I even looked up the I'm a prima donna song when I was a bit older to try and find it and couldn't. So I did a straw poll in our office of 12 people, of which 10 people are my age or older. Only 4 could remember this song. And of those 4, all 4 thought that it was called I'm a Prima Donna. They didn't even know the name of the track, but they just remember I'm a Prima Donna. So that's what most people heard on the radio when it was played. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Including me.
One of those wrapped up like a douche, another runner in the night situation.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy. Yeah. So released in February 1980, the single entered the UK charts a month later in March. This was back in the day when you had the slow burning, and it peaked at number 4 in the charts 6 weeks later. I don't know if I said this is their debut single. It was originally a B-side and it just got played more, so they swapped it and said this is the A-side now. It became the first single to make the top 10 in the UK without the backing of a major record company, which is impressive.
Yes, of course.
There's a lot of stuff about this. So the debut album, this is a track off their debut album, Signing Off. Again, it's all about unemployment in the state. They're quite political, social political at this point. The album itself reached #2 in the UK, and has since been certified platinum selling. The political lyrics struck a chord in a country with widespread public divisions over high unemployment, the policies of the recently elected Conservative Party under Thatcher, and the rise of the National Front Party. These things are not unrelated. Their reggae and ska music reflected the rise of influence of Caribbean music in British culture, along with the two-tone movement that we've spoken about, leading to comparisons with the Specials, who we've already discussed, also from the West Midlands, and also had a multiracial lineup and socialist, so-called socialist views, more like sort of humanist, I'd say, but there you go. Sounds magazine awarded Signing Off 5 out of 5 stars, claiming it is an almost perfect album. It's rare to find a debut album so detailed, so excellently played, and so packed with bite. I sometimes think it hasn't really happened since The Clash. AllMusic said their rhythms may be reggae-based, their music Jamaican-inspired, but UB40 had such an original take on the genre that all comparisons were moot. Their music was revolutionary, the sound unlike anything else on either island, referring to Great Britain and Jamaica. It's hard to believe this is the same UB40 that later topped the UK charts with the likes of Red Red Wine and I Got You Babe. Their fire was dampened quickly, but on Signing Off it blazed high, still accessible to the pop market, but so edgy that even those who are sure there's nothing about this group to admire will change their tune instantly. In June 2000, the British music magazine Q placed Signing Off at number 83 in its critics' list of the 100 greatest British albums ever. The album is also included in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. Now, luckily, I managed to find a copy from somewhere. There's Deborah.
Thank God.
And here is UB40 Signing Off. There we go. On the same page, Teardrop Explodes, Kilimanjaro, and the Specials, more Specials. Stevie Winwood, Arco Diver, which is a very underappreciated album. Pretenders' first album. Susie the Banshees of Juju, which we mentioned already. And going t'other way, as they say. The Jam, Sound Effects. And Tom Waits, Heart Attack Van. Fantastic. And The Undertones. Oh no, that's from 1980. Skip that. Oh no, it is, yeah. And The Undertones, Hypnotized as well. Fantastic. What a year to be alive. So into the most often misquoted and misheard lyrics. I'm a prima donna. No. Ivory Madonna, dying in the dust, waiting for the manna coming from the west. Barren is her bosom, empty as her eyes. Death a certain harvest scattered from the skies. Apparently that's to do with the carpet bombing that they witnessed
That's what I assumed, yeah.
Yeah. Skin and bones is creeping, doesn't know he's dead. Ancient eyes are peeping from his infant head. Politicians argue, sharpening their knives, drawing up their bargains, trading babies' lives. And then we get that first sax solo. Ivory Madonna dying in the dust, waiting for the manna coming from the west. Hear the bells are ringing, Christmas on its way. Hear the angels singing, what is that they say? Eat and drink rejoicing, joy is here to stay. Jesus, son of Mary, is born again today. Ivory Madonna dying in the dust, waiting for the manna coming from the west. And that's repeated another couple of times. You got all these synths and drum rolls, and then it finishes. And remember, this is a Peel session, so they probably had 2 hours to put this together.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's great. And, and they say diamonds are formed under pressure. So yeah. So just going back to the band, early credibility, great songs, and then after that, success and
They cashed in
popular,
their credibility
popular
for
songs.
some dinero.
So the band has had more than 50 singles in the UK singles charts and 20 studio albums. UB40 have sold more than 100 million records worldwide. They had 2 Billboard Hot 100 number ones with the aforementioned Red Red Wine and Can't Help Falling in Love. Can't Help Falling in Love, sorry, not I Got You, Babe. Both of these topped the UK charts, as did their cover I Got You, Babe with Chrissy Hyde, which is their number one. 2 albums, A Labour of Love, 1983, which is double platinum, and Promises and Lies, 1993, also double platinum. Both reached number one on the UK albums chart, 14 and 6 in the USA, respectively. Labour of Love 2 in 89 went triple platinum. UB40 and English band Madness jointly hold the record for the most weeks spent by a group in the UK singles chart during the 1980s, with 214 weeks each. Just about the band, lead singer Ali Campbell left in 2008, but the band continued with their latest album, UB45, released in April of this year, and it reached number 5 in the UK charts.
Damn.
The first one to actually have any success for a number of years, to be fair. I'm not really listening to that stuff, not my bag, baby. But I think this is really interesting, and for anyone who isn't familiar with it or get a kick out of this being compared to their later poppier stuff.
Yeah.
I think this is proper stuff. And it's good that they were emerging from that scene, which had a social and political conscience at the time. Those guys in the Midlands really were driving things forward multiculturally as well, which is fantastic. So yeah, they had credibility before
Before
they
didn't, is what you're saying.
before they didn't. Yes, that's not for
No.
me to say, but yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Anyway, I shall wrap things up.
Yeah,
Thanks for listening to this,
just
Andy.
really quickly to say what a like again, sad, horrible subject matter aside, how interesting it was for me to learn that there was more depth to these guys
Yeah.
before they went chasing the bag. So hats off to them for putting out stuff like this at any point in their career. And I can't really fault them for wanting to be financially successful, but I'm glad they got this out of their system so it could be absorbed and heard and people could
Yes.
reflect on what they're talking about before they went into,
No, you're right.
the other
They
stuff.
got their stuff they probably really wanted to do when they first formed the band. I know, in terms of music and message. And then they got the rewards they really wanted when they first formed the band.
Yeah.
A bit later on. Yeah. But there you go. Yeah, it's just also interesting that this song could have been, Do They Know It's Christmas 5 years earlier. Really interesting that they came across this as their debut single B-side. And then fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 in 10 is a really haunting song as well. You wouldn't be surprised to know, going to him with unemployment. So yes, I'll wrap things up. Thanks for listening to this. Folks out there, tell us what you think if you are familiar with earlier UB40, and what do you think of this? And apart from 1 in 10, and the other sort of early tracks that you would recommend. Please drop comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. And help bolster the the channel's credits with various international banks that we can't mention.
You've already said too much.
Yes. That being said, thanks again so much for watching. And we'll see all of you on the next episode of the Audiophiles.
See you later, guys.